East Baton Rouge Parish more secure. So I want to turn it over to the great governor, John Bell Edwards of the great state of Louisiana. Governor Edwards.
Now, thank all of you for being here today. You know, there's an excitement and energy this time of year on all school campuses, whether it's a big university like Southern or LSU or an elementary school. Here we're at McKinley High School, and you can feel it here as well. And I want to thank Dr. Petrie for his leadership here at McKinley, and I want to thank Superintendent Drake as well. You know, earlier this year, in the wake of the horrific shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida, I formed the Blue Ribbon Commission on School Safety as an effort to evaluate current safety measures that are in place across Louisiana in our schools and to identify steps that we can make to improve safety. And that commission is composed of both educators and law enforcement officials from around the state of Louisiana. They have been working very hard over the past several months to assess safety protocols throughout our school districts. And we all know there are no simple answers. But our job is to make sure that we're doing all that we can, everything in our power, to keep our children safe as they return to school and as they attend school throughout the year. And accomplishing this goal has been a top priority of superintendents, administrators within all our school districts and within individual schools as well. And that's allowed the commission to move even more quickly in achieving its goals. One of the first things the commission did was have the superintendents complete a survey of all of the various districts. And we received a very strong response and are using the results to make informed decisions about how we move forward. The commission has also been working to have public safety officials assess every public school in the state with the option for private schools to participate as well. And the assessment was designed to evaluate every aspect of school security, including physical security, school entrance policies, evacuation plans, school staff training, the use of resource officers, and technology. And we've just finished assessing all high schools across the state of Louisiana, and we're now going to continue to move those assessments through the middle schools and elementary schools as well. And by the way, the assessments are not about pointing fingers. They were about everybody working together to do better. When we see best practices, we need to share that with everyone. When we identify areas where we can improve, then we need to point that out and make sure that we are going to, in fact, improve. And we want these things addressed at every single school. Another outcome of the commission is that the Louisiana State Police has actually applied for 2 federal grants that would provide funding for increased safety measures. And we hope to hear something positive about those grant applications by the end of next month, by the end of September. And I want to thank everyone who has served on the commission, law enforcement, educators, because they have worked so hard to make such progress before the start of the school year. But I want to make sure everybody understands this. This is something that is never ending. It is just starting. We're going to continually work to improve school safety for all of our students, and I suspect we will never reach the finish line. But we're going to do everything that we can and be diligent as we can as well. So I do want to thank all the superintendents and the principals and the staff members across the state of Louisiana who have participated. And of course, I've got some of those with us here today, so thank you all very much. You know, because of the results of the surveys and the assessments, we have a better understanding, a better vision of where we need to go from here. And obviously, this is a joint effort, not just by the commission, but by everybody working together. Our children are the most precious gift that we have, and our most sacred responsibility is ensuring their safety. And we have to do that in our schools so that our parents can feel comfortable throughout the day as well. So at this time, I'm going to ask Colonel Reeves to come up and discuss more about the efforts of the Blue Ribbon Commission. He will be followed by others. At the end of the presentation, we will take questions as well. So thank you all very much. Oh, and I brought a school teacher with me today. I'm so excited about school starting. I forgot to mention my wife, Donna. Thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for your leadership in convening the Blue Ribbon Commission. I'd like to thank my co-chair, State Superintendent John White, and his team for all the work that they've done. Our goal in this initiative was to bring together education officials, law enforcement, and other stakeholders to establish and strengthen relationships, ensure effective communication between all parties, assess current state of school safety and readiness, identify funding opportunities that may be of assistance going forward, evaluate current state laws, recommend steps to enhance school safety and readiness, develop a blueprint of best practices, and ensure an ongoing review process regarding school safety and security. As the Governor mentioned, we have had tremendous success with our short-term goals. This has truly been a team effort among the Governor's office, state police, sheriffs, police departments, police chiefs, the state fire marshal, GOSEP, the Department of Education, and as the Governor said, education officials throughout the state. But no, our work is far from being complete. We are continuing to conduct assessments across the state at middle schools and working our way to elementary schools. We will continue to research funding opportunities. We're evaluating current legislation. Most importantly, we will continue to foster a collaborative environment among all stakeholders to ensure that we are doing everything possible to promote a safe and secure learning environment for our students, our faculties, and our staffs. With that, I'll now turn it over to State Superintendent John White for some comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel, and I believe that the Governor and the Colonel have summarized everything that could have been said about the activity of the Commission, but it's been a privilege to serve on the Commission. I want to thank you, Governor and First Lady, for not that this issue needed any more highlighting than unfortunately has been done for us, but you have created a space, Governor, where agencies at the state level and at the local level, even now universities, have come together to be able to solve this most pressing problem. Too often in government we have silos and lines that divide us, and I believe that the Commission has created a space where we can come together to solve problems. In fact, just this morning the Governor's office convened LSU with the Department of Education to pursue yet another grant opportunity. And so I hope that the list of financial opportunities that the Governor has talked about bringing to the state and that Colonel Reeves mentioned as well will grow. We know, though, and I believe the Colonel has done an excellent job in bringing together the law enforcement community with the education community, that the actors on this are not primarily state actors but local actors. And I thank so much the sheriffs and the chiefs in the room, and I also thank my fellow superintendents at the local level. We've asked, therefore, Superintendent Wes Watts, our outstanding superintendent from West Baton Rouge Parish, if he would provide some comments as well. Wes.
Thank you, Superintendent Whiten, for the opportunity to be here representing superintendents across the state. We do recognize the number one priority for us to provide a safe environment for our students to go to school in. That's what parents want, as Mr. Drake said, and that's number one. So we're really thankful to Governor Edwards for your commitment to helping us with that. And I think Superintendent White just said it. The support from our state police officers and also our local law enforcement officials has been outstanding. And the cooperation we've had with them is going to help us to make this happen. And I think for us as superintendents, there's two components to school safety. It is the physical facility safety, single entry points and those kinds of things, but also it's the emotional and safety of our students. That when they come to school, every student feels valued, feels respected for who they are, no matter where they come from, no matter what they look like, and we need to provide that also, and this is all a part of that. So we appreciate the support, and thanks for the opportunity to be a part of this today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, First Lady. My name is William Hilton. I'm Sheriff of Rapides Parish. I want to carry y'all back a long way back. When I was an investigator at the Rapides Parish Sheriff's Department, I investigated a homicide one afternoon where a little boy killed his mother. During the course of that investigation, I found out that in his school, he had tried to get one of his classmates that lived close to the school to go home and get his .22 rifle and bring it to school so he could kill his teachers. Well, that always preyed in my mind and stayed in the back of my mind. Years later, I was elected sheriff, and I always thought about that one particular case that I had investigated. So there was a conference in Nashville, Tennessee that I went to, and they were school officials there. They were law enforcement there from all over the United States, and some of the states that were represented had school resource officers. So I became very, very interested in that. And when I got back to Alexandria, our superintendent at that time was a lady named Patsy Jenkins, and some of you in education here may remember Patsy. I went to her and asked her what her thoughts were on maybe getting officers in all of our schools. She was all for it, but we didn't have any money. We had nothing to do it with. So I got to meeting with the business leaders in the community, educators. Nobody was against this at all. Everybody was for it, but we didn't have any money. So we called a half-cent sales tax in Rapides Parish, and the voters approved it. And now in Rapides Parish, I have 63 school resource officers in our schools. And we have every school, public and private, all of them. And I study a lot of these cases where we have these shootings across the country. The Sandy Hook, for one, with Adam Lanza up there, and they just so much to be learned from the type of people that do these shootings. And I read and I study, and I have the entire case file on the Sandy Hook shooting up there. But that's the way we did it in Rapides Parish, and people love it. The mothers and daddies love it. When they send that child to school, they want it to be safe. They want that child to come home. The teachers want a safe environment. And one of the things that we've learned, and Colonel Reeves can probably verify this, a lot of our schools in the state, most of them are wore out. They're old schools. They're 30, 40, 50 years old. We have Alexandria Senior High, and Alexandria has 63 entry and exit doors on it. It's hard to make a school like that safe. It's just going to take so much money, and it's just a big thing to get done. But Governor, we support you for what you're trying to do. And I think, I don't know his entire plan, what he plans to do across the state, but we support him, and there's nothing, I don't believe, that we do in state government that's any more important than keeping our children safe at school. With that being said, thank y'all.
Okay, so at this time, we are happy to take questions from the media, if you have any. Yes, sir.
All right, Governor. Kind of veering off the subject of today. Obviously, tomorrow your plans are later this week. Your plans to visit with President Trump
Oh,
in
yeah.
New Jersey, and obviously over the years, the past 2 years at least, you've had a pretty decent working relationship with the president. If I might sort of have your comments on how important you find that relationship to be, and also as we get into the midterm elections, do you think other Democrats, other leaders in states all around can benefit from having that kind of working relationship?
Well, first of all, I think there's a benefit to be had by everyone having a good working relationship with the White House and the president. And quite frankly, I made it my business to make sure I had a good working relationship with President Obama, and the same goes now. Louisiana is one of those states that more often than many other states requires assistance from the federal government, and having good relationships with the congressional delegation, with the president, other officials at the White House and throughout the cabinet, I think is incredibly important. The trip that I'll make later this week deals with criminal justice reform. It'll actually be the second time I've been invited to visit with the folks at the White House, although I won't be going to the White House on Thursday, but I'll be visiting with the president and his team around criminal justice reform. And something that we're excited about that we initiated last year. We've still got a long ways to go, but obviously they're looking at what we did in Louisiana and trying to figure out what they can incorporate in their approach to prison reform and potentially criminal justice reform at the federal level. So I think I best serve the people of Louisiana by having a good working relationship with whoever the occupant of the White House is, and that certainly goes for President Trump. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the balance between maintaining school security
Yeah.
and having
Yeah.
a little oppressive or intimidating for students to do.
Yeah, first of all, that's something that I spoke to the commission about at its very first meeting. Public safety is priority number one for the state, period. And there's no segment of our population more precious than our children. And knowing that our children are going to be in schools, what that means is we have to do everything we can to make sure that our children are safe. But at the same time, we want the environment in our schools to be conducive to learning, and we want it to be a welcoming environment, and we don't want our schools to look more like prisons, for example. And so trying to get that mix right, it can be hard, and quite often it can be expensive as well. But it is something that we need to do. And a lot of that will come not so much with the physical features of the school and the security system, but the way the staff and faculty, the principals interact with those kids on a daily basis. And the parents, because the kids and the parents need to be comfortable that it needs to be an atmosphere in which they can learn. I've made no secret about it because it informs an awful lot of how I think and what I do. But, Donna, having taught in the public school system in Louisiana in Tangipahoa Parish, being a product of that school system, it's just incredibly important to me that every child have the opportunities that I had, and that we don't create atmospheres in our schools that are that some way inhibit that from taking place. Yes, ma'am.
There was a new law that passed, I think it was sponsored by Representative Bakala, about how schools should handle behavior that they might find concerning or troubling, and it's actually at the questions for Superintendent White. I'm wondering how, I know there were some questions about that law, and I think there were concerns about whether it placed too much of a burden on the school system to start reporting to the local sheriff about students. I was wondering how that's going, implementing it. I'm sorry, I don't know if it's going into effect this year.
Yeah. We're in communication with every school system about every one of the statutes that was passed, and we're also in dialogue about a lot of the pieces of legislation that were not. That particular bill generated a lot of controversy, if I recall the bill that you're discussing. In fact, Bessie did not take a position on that particular bill and let the legislature debate it. It's about the extent to which preemptive action can be taken vis-a-vis students that are exhibiting some troublesome behavior. It's an issue we continue to talk to school systems about, where Bessie is just codifying all of the statutes that were put into law into regulation, actually at the next two upcoming meetings, and then it'll be something that we'll be discussing further with school systems after that's been done.
Okay, so it takes some, I'm sorry for not knowing this, it takes some action from Bessie before it becomes
Any piece of legislation that directs Bessie to do something or directs school systems to do, Bessie will consider, and then we'll typically adopt the language of the statute and put it into bulletin. But this is an ongoing issue that obviously Representative Bakala's legislation didn't bring to the fore, which is how do we address the needs of students who are exhibiting troublesome behavior. And I believe the governor spoke to this, which is that on one hand, there's a very justifiable movement in this country, including in Louisiana, to create a more humane environment for students who may demonstrate troublesome behavior. On the other hand, there's clearly evidence, sadly, that at certain points we need better information on students. We need more information on students. We're working with school systems on that, and we're, of course, talking to Representative Bakala about that.
No more questions. Charles?
So, Governor, you had spoken back in spring about wanting a school resource officer in every school. What has happened with that since?
Yeah.
And also with this commission, what's the end point
Yeah.
here? Where are you trying
Well,
to
first of all,
go?
there really isn't an end point because, as I mentioned, this is an ongoing and
It is ongoing, but
yeah.
the commission itself.
Correct. So we're doing surveys. We're working with superintendents. We're working with principals. And in fact, we have much of the information that we were looking for now on the percentage of schools with school resource officers, those who do not have one. And those who have them, what's the level of training? Is it post certification? Is it post certification plus special training for school resource officers? We are just now getting that information, and so we're getting the data that we need in order to drive the decisions going forward. And that's why it has to be a collaborative relationship between law enforcement and local superintendents and principals, but also working with Superintendent White, the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, because there are some things we can do to enhance school safety that cost literally next to nothing. There are other things that are critically important that we do that will have a cost associated with them. And so when we identify those needs and those actions that we want to take and the cost associated with them, we also then have to be committed to find the resources necessary to pay for that implementation. So we are at that process, at that stage in the process now, where with the data that we've gotten, and we have a little bit more to get, but we're almost there. We will be able to make a determination, because one of the things that you all heard me say is I did not support arming our teachers in our schools, but I support having a school resource officer in every one of our schools. A school resource officer is properly trained, properly equipped, and trained on an ongoing basis. And so to make that a reality, I have to have this information. And then with the information, we will make the decisions and take the actions necessary going forward to make sure that we deliver on that, because I think it's critically important. So you're going to be hearing more as we go forward, but we did want to call you all together and give you an update on the commission's activities thus far, because all around the state of Louisiana over the next couple of days, our students are going to be returning to school. And so we knew this would be on the minds of folks across the state of Louisiana, so we wanted to take this opportunity. Look, thank you so much for coming out. Again, I want to thank Dr. Petrie and Superintendent Drake for opening this school here in Baton Rouge to us. And look, when it comes to anything that we're undertaking, I always invite prayer. But when it comes to the safety of our children at school, that's something that we should probably pray for every day, especially as we see what's in the headlines around the country. So God bless you. Thank you very much.